Good evening, everyone. Wednesday night, episode 42 of So What's Been Happening. Wednesday, the 30th of June. Supposed to be the end of financial year, but I think it's the end of lack of finances for me for the financial year. So hopefully we kick onto a new one and new beginnings. Here we are at show 42. Berkey, how are you, mate?
Going all right, as. Who'd have thought we'd get to 42, mate?
Exactly. We will say that forever. Give us a number 42, mate, if you got one.
Oh, it's got to be Pants. Pants, mate. He's got Pants Malane. Holding up the ball at the end there, throwing the ball up in the air, broken finger, breaking the drought. It's got to be 42 for me, mate. What
about Cuz, mate? How are you, mate? Have you got one?
Yeah, g'day, Az. G'day, Berkey. Yeah, look, as an Essendon supporter for the wrong reasons, Pants Malane. What an amazing man who lived a pretty hard life, but that moment when he held up the footy, his family will never forget that. So, yeah, great times.
Yeah, I'll do a quick shout out to Big James Worthy. Played for the Lakers, big number 42 back in the day.
Yeah,
so
I was waiting for it.
Might be fitting that we flash back into the 90s. What a great time it was growing up as a young bloke, getting out and experiencing pubs and music and bands. And no doubt our next guest was definitely part of that scene. Berkey, who have we got for show number 42?
Well, this bloke probably doesn't remember much of the 90s, but I think we both lied on in the 80s. I saw this guy back, I think it was the Seaview Ballroom, might have been the Crystal Ballroom in St Kilda 100 years ago, I reckon. He would only have been 6 and I was probably about 20. But he played in a band called Beach House. He's playing bass guitar, and he left the band and went up with another band with his sidekick Adrian in the Wreckery. That's where a lot of people fell in love with this bloke. And then everyone jumped on board for his other band, Nick Barker and the Reptiles. So let's get him out here. Nick Barker.
How are you, Nick? Welcome.
How are you?
G'day, Nick. Welcome aboard.
Thanks, mate. Gee whiz, you got a good memory on your Berkey Beach House. Jesus Christ.
Two bass players, mate.
Two bass players in Beach House.
Yeah, strange.
Yeah.
That's where I remember you.
That was the early 80s for you, though. That was a nutty, arty time, you know.
2 drummers, 3 bass players, and a saxophonist.
Oh, yeah. We had it all.
Good times.
All right, Berkey. I suppose let's kick off, Berkey, with your first memory of Nick. Where else outside of this first bar, and where did you see Nick, and what's his little journey been like for you?
Well, I actually work with my sister, and I got a jab on the side today because it's almost 20 years to the day to her 30th birthday that we left early to go and see Nick play at the Mill Park Stables. Wasn't far from us. And I skipped my daughter and my sister's 30th birthday to go and see the Reptiles.
Oh, man. See, that's what we don't have enough of in this country, you know. I reckon we could just that sort of commitment to live music, you know.
Yeah.
Berkey's always texting me saying, I got tickets for this, I got tickets for that. And it's like, I just don't know how you have the fucking energy, honestly. I mean, it's funny, you know, because when you're in a band, you kind of, how do I put this? It's not that you don't enjoy music. It's just that it's a competition sport. You know what I mean? So, for me, going and seeing bands that are my contemporaries, it's a double-edged sword, you know, because on one hand, I dig what they're doing and I love them. But on the other hand, I'm like, why can't I pull this amount of people, or why didn't I think of that, or how come they're doing it's, and that it's the same when you're listening to music as well. Like I don't listen to music to relax. It just makes me tick over, you know. So it's kind of, as I said, it's got a good side and a bad side, being a musician. You would look. From what I gather, you blokes, you really look forward to going out and seeing a gig and just kicking back and relaxing. But it's kind of the opposite for me. I love it, but there's a lot of anxiety attached to it, you know.
Coming from you were the big band there for a lot of years, Nick. The Reptiles had everything. You had packed shows, 5-6 nights a week, touring all over the country, touring overseas. What were those times like? Do you remember much of it, Nick? And can you tell us any stories from them?
It's funny, I do. I remember a lot of. I mean, Reptiles. It sort of was. It was. There was a lot packed into a really small amount of time, really, because Reptiles were really only sort of around 88, pretty much to 92, I guess. And I was talking to someone the other day saying that was kind of like the end of pub rock. Really, it was the tail end of it. I mean, because all good things change, right? I mean, then the early 90s came in and kind of that Seattle grunge scene sort of swept through and festivals started kicking in. It wasn't, we could play 5 nights a week in one city. Like we could go to Sydney and play Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, We could go to Brisbane and do the same, play in the Goldie, play 2 shows in town, one up the Sunshine Coast, one in Toowoomba, and we used to do that constantly. We just roll it over and over again up that East Coast, Adelaide, not so much, but certainly that part of it. And, that sort of business model, and when the 90s really kicked into gear, that sort of part of it died a little bit. I mean, bands still toured, but it wasn't all there was, which is a good thing, but it kind of pulled the rug out from us a little bit. We saw a definite kind of, what we were doing just wasn't. Everybody wanted to sign another Nirvana then. Like it was just, It was madness. Honestly, it really was. I mean, it was a real crossroads, and we'd sort of come out of just 4 years of constant doing pub rock, and I guess in the end we were treading water a little bit, But having said that, we had a blast.
Not surprised. Can you, Nick, before we get on to much of the Reptile stuff, you can take us back to your first musical, influences. I've gone with Keith, as you've been a big Stones man and played lots of Stones gigs as well. But can you take us back to your first thoughts of you when it first started with you?
I was always a Neil Young guy when I was growing up, like most young guys in the sort of 70s, it was whatever my sisters and their boyfriends were listening to. So it was always whatever was in my sister's record collection. And I remember the first 2 records she had a Goat's Head Soup and she had Decade by Neil Young. And I think she had a bunch of other stuff too, but that was the stuff that I really kind of listened to a lot. And so I kind of started with a mate sort of playing Neil Young covers, really. And then, then when I started going and playing, like I moved to St Kilda, I was about 17 and started playing at the Ballroom. And I was in about 5 bands. I was in Beach House. I was in a band called The Curse with Adrian. Yeah. And, me and Adrian, I've known him since I was 17, which is, 30 years. So, and it was a really great, people forget, it was, people think of the 80s and they think of kind of, Pseudo Echo and, that real kind of late 80s scene. But the little band scene I was a part of in the early 80s was incredible. Like there was gigs everywhere in St Kilda, the Mount Erica, the Prince of Wales, the Esplanade, obviously the Seaview Ballroom, Crystal Ballroom as it became. And, I was living in a squat in Carlisle Street, me and Adrian and a bunch of other people. And we were just playing all the time. And then I joined the Wreckery, and the Wreckery were kind of, we were a popular band, and we used to play a lot and we used to tour a lot. We used to go to Brisbane and Sydney. And, at that time, I mean, Sydney was incredible. Like we used to go play, the Hopetoun and places like this in the Trade Union Club. And, we'd do the Trade Union Club and there'd be us, Died Pretty, be Suburban, on upstairs, and then a bunch of other bands on the second floor, Vanilla Chainsaws, bands like this, it was exciting. And people, people forget that we did it all ourselves. Like there was no internet, we were doing posters ourselves. We were printing vinyl ourselves. We were incredibly proactive and incredibly busy, So In a lot of ways, I think those times when I was sort of 18 playing bass in the Wreckery, because I made 4 albums with them, and maybe even 5. But I think I probably enjoyed that a lot more than Reptiles in some ways because I was a lot more carefree. I didn't have
front man. Yeah.
I didn't have the sort of kind of corporate responsibility that I guess I felt in Reptiles, which sounds strange, but they sunk a lot of dough into us, man. And I did feel pressure. I felt pressure because we were kind of all of a sudden in a different realm. I mean, bands, people like Diesel and that were selling bucket loads of records. I mean, you got no idea. I mean, they were selling, a couple 100,000 albums, which seems just like another universe compared to now,
Yeah.
And I guess people don't realise Reptiles never really sold that many records, I mean, believe me, if I sold that many records that I'd sold in Reptiles now, I'd be designing a pool. But, at the time, the way the deals were structured, they spent a bunch of money making them. And so you had a lot of money to pay back. And, you just, that's kind of how we ended up doing Make Me Smile. I mean, we'd always played that song, but there was a heavy, not pressure, but like, oh, we really do think you should record that song. And I didn't want to because I just, hey, we've got all these other songs, but it did kind of do the trick for us, right? And
sort of, yeah.
Well, it was a big radio hit, and it got us on Hey Hey Saturday and all these things that, that were really beneficial to us at the time. But boy, it was by no means an easy decision for me. Whereas Wreckery, we were just kind of, doing our own thing. And, I was just having a ball. So I don't know. I mean, I had a great time with Reptiles. Don't get me wrong. I loved it, but they were just 2 different experiences for me. So
did the record company did that detract from your enjoyment, like the pure enjoyment you got from playing the music, Nick? Would that be a fair call from just what you sort of said then? Like you said you felt about the pressure, but so obviously you enjoyed the music, but that sort of detracted from that enjoyment for you, like personally?
Well, I guess my thing that I realise now is Reptiles, and you guys, if you'd seen Reptiles, and you have, I know Berkey has, we're a fucking great bar band, That's what we were. That's what, I'd been in, as I said, I'd been in these bands like the Wreckery, and they were fairly serious bands. And I just wanted to do something that was dumb as hell, I just wanted to do something where we were just drinking piss and like that kind of American bar band, where you could just, do all that stuff. You go and stand out in the crowd and do all that stuff. And that's what Reptiles were about. And I guess in some ways, they tried to kind of polish us a bit and, I don't know, trying to make us more of a heavy rock band than we actually were. We had a harmonica player, for Christ's sake. We were never going to be Guns N' Roses, we just kind of wanted to be Georgia Satellites, and that did. And, and they got American producers. And the first American producer we had was, he wasn't the right fit at all. A lovely bloke, but, we were double tracking. He came at us from a very heavy rock kind of place, and it just wasn't us. We were just a really fucking good, no bullshit bar band, and we lived it. The Reptiles were the real thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes
on the album, he took the balls out of it. He took the you go and see you guys, you get the energy, and you come back pumped. But when you play the record, it's just not, To
our detriment, we played every show like it was our last,
Yeah.
And when you're playing 5 nights a week, maybe it's not such a great idea to play the Wednesday like it's your last gig and you've got 5 more to go. So
it worked for us,
but we did have our vodka and staminade, so, it was, look, I loved it, I could still, we spent a lot of time in vans together, and so you bonded for life, and I am with Adrian and Dave and Drew and Chris, after it all sort of finished, it was, I mean, we're only in our 20s. I mean, I was a kid, it was so emotional and, and then later on in life, now I'm in my 50s, you really realise what you had, because I've done other bands since. And, it's not an easy thing to do a band. There is a chemistry there, and, it either works or it doesn't. And it doesn't for a lot of bands, and unfortunately they do split up. But, we packed a lot in, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, one thing I'm really interested in is from the signing, when you signed to a label, Nick, and you came through that phase, and then first of all, that initial feeling of being signed to a label. Did you feel like you were going to be given your direction you could go in, or were you kind of steered in a direction from the start with your first label?
Well, we signed to Mushroom, and they were an incredibly supportive label, but still they were a label, and they were putting money into bands. So there's a pressure that goes with that. And I completely wasn't prepared for it, because, as I said, I'd just been playing bass and, taking drugs and meeting girls and having a ball in the Wreckery. And then I've kind of gone, and there was some pretty heavy life stuff going on as well with said drugs, and and I was kind of coming out of all that. And then we signed to Mushroom, and I had strong instincts about songs and what I thought the band wanted to sound like, and they had their ideas. And I did feel it as a young guy, and I also felt like I felt that I owed them something for giving me that opportunity. But look, that first, every band wanted a record contract, and in those, especially in the late 80s, and I would have jumped crawled through a barbed wire fence with a pen. I would have signed that thing sight unseen. I mean, it wouldn't have made any difference to me. I just wanted to sign that record contract because it was the holy grail. So,
sure.
I come to realise that it probably wasn't, but look, they did a lot for us, man. They, the publicity machine behind those labels was phenomenal. It was a completely different animal to what it is now. I'd spend 4 days in at Mushroom Records, 4 full days just in the conference room on the phone doing interviews. I'd go out and do these things called retail runs with the festival reps. They'd take you around to like chart stores, basically, and not to do installs, just go in and meet the guys, shake their hands. And, there was a lot of groundwork. It wasn't just a matter of putting a record out and kind of chucking a few things up on Facebook and Instagram. I mean, this was a serious business. And I'd go to Sydney and do 3-4 full days of press, with 2 or 3 publicists working on it, and some of that stuff, I ended up in Dolly and magazines like that. I just figured at the time, these are the compromises that I have to do, even though every fibre of my being was going, you don't be doing this. This is just daggy as hell, But
Yeah.
look,
on Ram and Duke when you got Dolly magazine, mate.
Yeah. And they're always the ones that people pull out and go, look at this. It's Danny Minogue. Having lunch with Danny Minogue or something.
I'm sure it got you pinned. Sure, he got pinned on a wall, on one of those young ladies' walls somewhere along the line, mate, back in the day.
Yeah, but that was part of the machine, and it was a machine, man. I tell you, once it got up and going. So, look, consequently, for a while there, and even to this day, people still remember who I am, and purely because of that. People wouldn't know, probably couldn't name one song, or maybe not another album that I've done since then. And there's been a lot of them, but so you can't say they didn't do a good job on publicity. And we backed it up. Look, we were as I said, we were a real band, and we weren't just some shit thing that got up on stage and you went, oh, fuck, this is a bit lame. I mean, we gave it. So you were never disappointed walking away from a Nick Bugg and a Reptiles gig. So
I'm proud of that. The spread of you, Nick, up on my wall. So
Get a bit creepy now.
Well, you've got great man. You've got the axe in your hand. Can we? I think you've got belly out something for us, mate.
Sure.
What are you thinking?
Well, I thought I might play something off Backyard 6, which was an album I put out late 90s, I think, or maybe 2000. Oh, God, I can't even remember. This is a good song. This song's about a gig I did. I was on tour with Mick Thomas, and I got kicked out of my own gigs. But it was just one of those nights, even though, I mean, that I got kicked out after I'd done my gig, but it was just a really great night. So anyway, this one's called Hearts and Minds. Even odds are older than you think. Stomach's butterflies are drowning in drink, and the clock does its thing. I can't get it to stop. Got a hand on your leg, yeah, my neck on the block. But just one more before I pull down the blinds on the best night I had in a year. All along, good, yeah, I don't need affection, just a little piece of your floor. It's my head and my heart, they don't talk much, no more. You don't have to be strong to hold up a bar. My soul today's got more rust in my car. It's 4 a.m. and I'm easily led. But your lights on green and I'm willing to red. Yeah, just one more before I burn down the bridge on the best night I had in a year. All along, good, I don't need a lecture, 'cause I know right from wrong. My head and my heart haven't talked so long. Last night I must have slept with your note. Your number was stuck to my face when I woke. It took me an hour in the mirror with a pen going backwards to forwards to see again. Yeah, just one more before I burned down the bridge on the best night I had in a year. All along, good, don't need a lecture, no right from wrong. Head and my heart haven't talked in so long. Sorry about the.
Great. Well done,
Fantastic, mate.
Don't know how good it sounds. My technical expertise is not great. So.
Super, mate. Sounded great.
All good at this end, Nick.
Oh, that's good. What's that message?
Very good, mate.
I'll turn the private chat off.
Probably wise.
Sorry?
Probably wise.
Just a couple of friends tuning in, mate. Basically, a couple of comments there.
It's good, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I've Unfortunately, I'm not a technical genius when it comes to setting these sorts of things up, but it is what it is, you know.
Yeah, can't wait till we get out and see a real play, Nick. I'm going to ask another one, boys, if you don't mind.
Go
So, I remember one of my fave Nicks was was a Sunday Arbor at the Yarra Glen pub with you played. It wasn't hot, but it was such a hot gig. You played. You got lost on the way to the gig. You played with Venom, and I think Garner was backing you up as well. And you played for about 3 hours. It was going to be one set. You played one Sunday. You played for about 3 hours. Phenomenal.
Where was it?
Oh, it would have been 10, 15 years ago. At the Yarra Glen. Yeah.
Now, that's one I don't remember.
I was going to ask you what your memories were, so we better move on then, mate.
Yeah, we'll just skip over that one.
Never.
Would it have been me and Venom and Tony, probably?
It was Tony. It was too. Yeah.
Man, we got a lot of.
You signed my poster with 1,000 obscenities that I could never put up anywhere, but I've still got it somewhere.
That's a good. That was a good three-piece, man. Me and Tony and Venom. I tell you, I loved playing in that band.
Yeah, they kicked, mate. They kicked. Great. Moving on from your Reptile stuff, Nick.
Yeah.
Into the Barker band.
Yep.
So you had some success there with the guys too in a different realm. A lot of critical acclaim, but that didn't carry over as much. You're still pulling crowds. You were still pulling crowds.
It was pretty interesting that because, as I said, Reptiles had finished and I'd gone overseas for a year and I come back and, and I still, look, I had a deal still with Mushroom and they were like, well, what do you got kind of thing. And I was like, well, I got one song. It's called Time Bomb. I reckon it's pretty good. And that was kind of all I had really was Time Bomb. I mean, which is such a bad backup, I guess, because it was, it was a solid track. And so I remember I went up to Richard Pleasant's, had a studio up in Dalesford, and I just went up there and me and him just hit it off, and we just, I just started writing and I wrote pretty much that whole album, that whole Happy Man album, that very quickly. And then we recorded it and it really took Mushroom by surprise. It took a lot of people by surprise because it got a lot of airplay. Like it got flogged on Triple J. It was album of the week. And then Time Bomb came out and Time Bomb did really well. Like it was hottest 100 that year. Got played on Triple M. It really kind of sideswiped a lot of people, that Triple J they played every single off it on high rotation. And, we were on live at the Wireless. And then we did this huge tour with the Bad Loves, which went for like 3 months, like a national tour. And, that was kind of at the peak of their powers. Now we were playing kind of, 2,000-seater theatres and it was incredible, really. It was just, it blindsided not only me, but I think it blindsided the record company as well because, it just, at that time, Triple J airplay was like this kind of, it was like the Wizard of Oz almost, and if you didn't get it, you kind of record. I saw it happen. I saw it happen with a lot of friends' bands. I won't name names, but, they'd make these records and Triple J said, nah. And then the record companies would just go, nah, But with us, it was just like we couldn't have got more airplay on there if we tried it. And I don't know what it was. It was just one of those things, I didn't touch the second solo album I made, but the first one, it was just, it was amazing. And, at that time, the SB front bar was kind of like, was cranking.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So we used to play there all the time. So, in between those sort of tours, we'd just go and play Thursdays at the SB front bar and just pack the joint. And it was incredible. It was a really great time, because whilst all this sort of other stuff was going on, it was just that new guard, You and I and bands like that coming through that just blew me away, those bands, When I heard them, I was just like, fuck. These bands were just incredible. The energy, all of them, like Big Heavy Stuff, You and I, Jebediah, like there was a lot of bands I really loved. I was really threatened by them, and I really felt like an old man, and I was getting pushed out of the scene, and all those emotions. But at the same time, they were good boy, and they could play, So I guess in a lot of ways, I was really happy that my record, was kind of up in the mix at least, because it would have been worse if it just come out and just died a death, right? So. Yeah. But look, they were good songs. Time Bomb was a good song, and it was a song for the times. It fitted right in. So, it's kind of weird, really, because it was an old song. It was a song that I rewrote that was from a band I was in with Adrian in 1982. It was just we just had this. That was the song, and that was pretty much all it was. So, and it was written by a mate of mine called Cornelius Delaney, and he was the singer in this band called The incredible songwriter. But he'd had that riff, and it was a song called Elephants Never Forget. And I just turned it into, and put the rest of it in there. And so it was basically a co-written song a decade apart, and it kind of, and it just goes to show you, how many good songwriters there are out there floating around. So I've tried to put one of his songs on every single one of my records since then, just as a homage to him, and just because all those songs, all those songs are just gone. Not a lot of them are recorded. They're just floating around in the air. So I've just sort of tried to, so that was a pretty exciting thing for him and for me when it made Hottest 100, So.
Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit about that this album cover, Nick. I love it. Love it.
Very.
Nice and bright, plenty of colour, pretty crazy. Tell us a little bit about the influence.
Well, I was working with a guy called Anthony who had a Dog Boy Films, and he did all the clips for that album. He did the Time Bomb and World's Peach clip, and Heard So Much About You with all the old guys playing in the band. I don't know if you saw that one, but just incredible guys, young guys again, and really innovative. And, I wanted to do this. I wanted a clown on the cover. And so I got my mate Terry, I just knew from the ESPY. And we dressed him up as a clown, and he turned up. It was a Sunday morning in St Kilda. We met up at the ESPY and dressed him up, and he'd been up all night on acid, and he was just tripping off his head. And so we dressed him up as a clown, and we took him out onto the Sunday market. And so there's all these people walking around buying their copper art or whatever, and here comes Terry, just with the ciggy, just going, "Hi, how you going?" with his clown outfit on, just snapping a couple of shots, and it just made the album cover, and it just makes me laugh every time I see it, because he's just covered in tats, and it was all wrong, and it was great. It was my favourite time at that bloody St Kilda market, that's for sure.
Long other times, yeah, you're right.
All right, I'm gonna hit you up for another song, Nick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What have you got for us next?
I'll play Time Bomb if you like.
Go for fantastic.
It. Sounds perfect.
Well, I've been sweeping the leaves out of my driveway. I've been living the good life up to now. The basket weaving and the therapist sessions ain't barely enough to dampen obsessions. Yeah, I've been taking cold bath on the hour. Well, I've been sweet and I've been good till you walked on home through my neighborhood. Well, I want you and I want you to know when I hold your hand, won't let go. I'm walking, talking, ticking time bomb. Well, I've been taking every ride from strangers. There ain't nobody, and I mean there ain't nobody stranger than me. Well, here's one so your system won't save. If you get me put down, maybe then I'll behave. Yeah, but I've been living the good life up to now. Well, I've been sweet and I've been good till you walked on home through my neighborhood. Well, I want you and I want you to know when I hold your hand, won't let go. I'm walking, talking, ticking time bomb. I've been watching the world from out my window, and I did like they said in the hospital, hold your breath, count up to 10. The thoughts I'm having defy description. Tell me, where in the hell did I put my prescription? 'Cause I've been having those strange dreams again. Well, I've been sweet and I've been good till you walked on home through my neighborhood. Well, I want you and I want you to know when I hold your hand, won't let go. I'm walking, talking, ticking, walking, talking, ticking time. Oh, I'm time.
Super.
Love it, mate. Love it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nick. Nick, just want to introduce another mate of mine, Lovey. Just bring him on. Lovey, how are you, mate?
Hey, mate. How you going? Nick, good to meet you, mate. How are you?
How are you,
Going
Lovey?
on?
How'd you
Well,
get that name?
Surname, Love.
Oh.
I
Thought
get
it might have been.
that's the kindest reference to it. You can imagine anything else, mate. So,
Thought it might have,
yeah,
might
Lovey's
have been
fine.
thought it might have been from Gilligan's Island. Was Lovey? Was that Gilligan's
Oh,
Island? Really
no, I'll
sure,
take
mate.
that too. I'll take that too. Playing a little bit of catch up on this particular potty, number 42. So, Berkey, you can take your Darren Mullane and shove it. As far as I'm concerned, there's only one team anyway, so that's fine.
Having a crack.
Still filthy on it 31 years later, but that's okay. as for the 90s, Nick, absolutely did my wheelhouse, probably like it was for Aaron. We're really similar in age, and he went for anywhere from clubs and pubs and even big day outs and all that sort of stuff, and things that were said and done, those particular things that I agree that just you can't repeat on here. I grew up with your music, like you said, Jebediah. Powderfinger came on a little bit after you guys as well. All very similar and all Australian and fantastic. Aaron's asked me to throw a question at you, but I always wondered from an international perspective. I mean, you talk about all those Australian bands. Was there an international group or a solo artist that you either toured with, played with, or whoever that you got on really well with? Have you got a favourite? Is there, who did you resonate with from an international perspective? Because you went international, and a lot of people overseas know you and the Reptiles in particular. So for me, I'm always intrigued as to who was it that you linked up with from an international perspective?
Well, I guess I get to meet quite a few people, but we didn't tour over there that much. We made a couple of records over there, but I met people here. Like the best person I ever met was Brian Setzer from the Stray Cats, who's kind of, and believe it or not, Reptiles did a tour with them. I mean, you wouldn't pick it as a kind of match, but we did. And when I went to the States, he gave me his number, and like a few people gave me their number, but everyone else just kind of brushed me off. But he come and picked me up in one of his, he's got all these Cadillacs, picked me up and drove me around. And their manager, I remember their manager at the time, or their tour manager was, he was working on the Lollapalooza, which was the Lollapalooza that had Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Chili Peppers, who I can take the lead. And he gave me a pass that was good for all of them. All I had to do was get any Lollapalooza in the whole of America that I wanted to go to, I could just walk in with this pass. So I went to about 4 of them. I flew down to Miami, and I went to Orlando, and I saw one in Los Angeles and one in San Francisco. And those guys hooked me up. They were just the real deal, and they really looked after, they're just good guys, Yeah. I've met a bunch of other people, touring.
Did you get to play a bunch of sets with some of those guys at Lollapalooza? Like not on stage, but like backstage? Were you able to jam out with them? What's the go?
I never got to jam with them, but I got to hang out. I was just hanging out backstage drinking piss, I was there, chatting with him and chatting with them, and I got to see the Black Crows play at like a side stage in Atlanta. I mean, it's just nuts stuff. But it was really weird because that lineup must have been booked before Pearl Jam, before Alive came out. So they were playing at like 1 in the afternoon. But by the time it came around, it was pretty clear who the biggest band on the day was. So by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that's those stadiums were just heaving. And then Soundgarden came on after them, and it was just, that was all before 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So
everyone's hammered in the afternoon. Fantastic.
Well, yeah, but it just kind of really, it made me realise just how huge that whole thing was. Like it was phenomenal. But I mean, it was more in the 80s that we really like. Wreckery did a whole bunch. We did a couple of shows with the Pogues, and I got to meet Shane McGowan, and I got to see the Pogues rider, which is still to this day one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen. The amount of booze on it, and and they drank it all. Like it was just.
What else would you expect? I reckon.
But it's funny though because we didn't. Even though Time Bomb and that song, that album did really well, we didn't get to play a lot of festivals. We for some reason, it was the people that ran the festivals were very protective of them and who they had on them, and we just didn't, for some reason, didn't resonate with whoever that was. So we just basically did our thing and did our pub shows, and but we did some supports, but yeah, I don't know. Over the years, I've met, a bunch of people in bands, but, for the most part, they're just like us, most of the ones I've met. You meet some dickheads, obviously, but, mostly all the people I've met they're just good people, who have found themselves from once. And you know what I've found too? Doesn't matter even people you go, wow, they must just be loving this is, but you realise that, there's insecurities on every level, even though you're looking up going, man, I wish I was you. I wish I was doing what you're doing. They're probably thinking, oh, God, when's it all going to end? Or, you sort of get a sense of that it's all beyond their control a little bit. But I don't know. I remember spending an afternoon with Earle Slick. You know who Earle Slick is?
Oh, yeah, far out.
Played with Bowie, and played with Lou Reed. And I was writing some songs with him. I was in LA writing songs, and I was writing songs with him, and just I was just sitting there getting him to play Bowie songs. I had his Moon Age Daydream going. Ash Naylor would have lost his shit. It was incredible. I couldn't believe it. I was in Hollywood just with Earle Slick, writing some songs with him and asking him about Lou Reed, and he's eating an ice cream and one of his teeth breaks off, and he looks at me, and he looks at me and goes, "You know what, Nick? Heroin and teeth just don't mix." And that was, there you go.
I want to play the ice cream myself, but anyway.
Mate, on that, look, if the boys just mind me jumping in, mate, would love to hear another song from you, if you wouldn't mind. Maybe a favourite song of yours, maybe, that you'd like to play?
Yeah, all right. I've got one, actually. I was thinking before. I'll play this one. This is a song I wrote for this band, The Heartache State, which was the band project that we did a couple of albums. This is a song about getting old in the music industry, and people sort of saying, when do you think you might hang it up? And I basically had a wardrobe full of shirts, and I had to get rid of them. I had to go, look, you're probably never going to wear them. These sort of flashy shirts that I bought for on stage, and the grim day dawned where I realised I was probably never going to get an opportunity to wear these shorts. So it was kind of a line in the sand for me. It was a bit of it wasn't a difficult thing to do to get rid of them, but I did. I thought I had this great line in my head about clock star, like how there's a time limit on these things, and when you get to a certain age, people aren't maybe going to want to see you jumping around.
They always come back. They always come back.
Yeah, but whether they come back with them suiting you is another thing, right? Anyway.
Take that.
So this one's clock stuff. So.
I got a lot of things I don't need. I'm gonna put them all out in the street. Make me a pile you can see from a mile away. Take anything in good faith, that old pair of boots or that soft guitar case. Shirts for attention, a musical direction, and I hope you don't waste it. You get so close, you can taste it. Time is ticking, we ain't giving out anymore. Got this old clock up on my shelf, and it chimes on the air, and I say to myself, I hear you, buddy, I hear you, buddy, I hear you. Telling me the pasture gate's open wide and the grass is green. Come on, step inside, but I got one more in me. Just one more. Just don't waste it. Open up your It's an escalator, son, you just can't run. There's nothing there to break you fall. Then your stocking feet, you can walk on down there. Fuck 'em all. Walk on down there and just fuck 'em all. Yeah, fuck 'em all. Just don't waste it, waste it. Open up your arms, embrace it. Time's ticking, they ain't giving out anymore. Time is ticking, they ain't giving out anymore. Well, I got a lot of things I don't need. I'm gonna put them all out in the street. Make me a pile you can see from outer space.
It's like a bit
Fantastic,
like
Nick. Absolutely fantastic, mate.
Thanks,
you're a
guys.
man of his powers, Nick. To be honest,
Sorry?
your writing now is as good as it's ever been, I reckon.
Thanks, Berkey. I've got a I've actually been working on another record, which is sort of 3/4 done, which I really fucking love. So
Hey,
I'm going to put that out. Probably, well, I'm not in a rush, but I like to work slowly. But either the end of this year or whenever. But that's a really good record, and it is funny because songwriting, even though kind of probably being a musician, it revolves around being young and doing all that stuff you did when you were young and touring and all the rest of it. But my songwriting's gotten a lot better, and it's a craft like any other. You hone it, and I had a lot of time to think, as I'm sure we all did during this lockdown, and I think you guys would know this too. It's affected a lot of people in a weird kind of way. A lot of people have had weird sort of epiphanies about their life, right? They've sort of had to kind of face up to themselves in a lot of ways, and I guess I'm no different. And I've been doing gigs since I was 17, and I've never gone 12 months without doing a gig. And it was a strange thing, and in some ways it was confronting, because it made me have to have a think about really who I am and what I am. And, I guess it really made me realize that I am primarily a songwriter, even though I've always played. So it was a good opportunity to kind of dig into that side of it. It's not something I would want, not something I want to happen, nor was it it was a terrible thing, but it's still, it's made you go in a certain way, right? I'm sure everyone has had to ask questions of themselves. So it was interesting in that regard, but the people that suffered most, as we know, and I heard you harassing radio talk back today, Berkey, about it. It's the smaller venues, the ones that are getting skewered by this. It's not bigger venues so much, even though they're copying it. It's James Young and it's Mick and Klanger and people like that are doing small pubs and trying to do small gigs. Whose business models has had its guts ripped out of it. So musicians, we got to, we're part cockroach, right? And if you've been doing it for any number of years, you realise that, you roll with it, and weird things happen all the time. Not pandemics, of course, but you have shit years, and I guess you're a little more resilient. But it's small businesses and small venues are the ones, so they're the ones we've really got to support. And by doing that, you've pre-buy tickets and go and see shows when you can, and go and have a beer in your local pub, because that's what Melbourne's really based itself on, and that's what's carried Melbourne, and that's what Melbourne's reputation is. And a lot of these venues will go, and you'll be spewing because you won't be able to go on a Sunday afternoon and see someone like me doing 245s and talking shit, and that's the real side of music, right? So I do feel. I hope we can all band together and help those smaller venues, because they're the ones, these people put a lot back in. James Young and Mick Thomas and all those people put a lot back in. You don't see it really, but they do. They're working. They work hard, and they are really visionary, There he is, the man himself. I fucking love that suit. And, so, go on. And if I can be self-serving, go and buy half a dozen Nick Barker and Reptiles tickets at the Corner Hotel. The Corner Hotel's been supporting music for 500 million years in this city, And if you want to give these venues...
Well, let's go to the Corner, Nick. We're doing the road trip as well, mate. We're coming to Sydney. So, sorry, you've got both nights, mate.
I wish we could put a little bit of whatever it is that flows through your veins in these vaccines, Berkey, because that would solve the live music problem in this country very rapidly, I can tell you, And, we appreciate it. We appreciate people like yourselves doing stuff like that because, just because you can't do the sort of... look, here's the way. I'm 57 this year on October the 30th, incidentally, so you can, buy me a present by coming to the Corner Hotel and seeing us. It's, everybody wants to be Paul Kelly. I'd love to be playing in a 2,000-seat theatre where you can hear a pin drop and everyone's just staring at me gobsmacked. But, I realise that that's for the large percentage of singer-songwriters, that's not the way it is. So, we've got to get out and do other things, and we can't do it without people who generally love going and seeing live shows. And we've had a big whack this year. So, by pre-buying tickets and paying you $20 or $30 or whatever, it gives venues the confidence to book more stuff, because I can guarantee you the Corner aren't going to be booking shows, and James isn't going to be able to be putting shows on at the Westwood and places like this unless they can see that their calendar's filling up. So, those ticket links have become really, really important now, more so than ever, because they're only running at half capacity still. So,
Nick, we're running out of time, mate, which is always going to happen because
I talk a lot.
No, Jeff, your fairs, mate. Loving hearing the stories. Just a couple of things. You said you found that you're just singer-songwriter. You want to be our best singer-songwriters, mate, without pissing in pockets. You can go and see Paul Kelly. we go and see lots of bands all year round, and you're up there, mate. You're in the top 5. So don't ever think that what you're doing is falling on deaf ears, because people that love music love your stuff. You can see by the comments that we've got tonight, just a big cross section of people that still love your stuff, want to hear new stuff.
I haven't got my glasses on. I'm just assuming they're positive.
Some of them are.
You can see a few love hearts.
There's a lot of love hearts there, Nick. You should be fine, mate.
Well, that's good.
So we expect a pre-album launch, mate, somewhere at one of our places or something beforehand.
For sure.
You have to wake your way out to St Andrews, mate, to sit around the campfire and play some stuff. So,
done a bunch of gigs out there over the years, mate. Panton Hill Hotel.
Yep, we've been there.
Nick, it's as the boys have said, and also the other people watching as well, mate. It's absolutely fantastic to have you on, mate. And you are as relevant today as when you first started, mate. Every guest we've had on the 42 episodes that we've had, I get the joy of asking what I call a very hard-hitting question. You're having a dinner party and you can invite 5 people, living or dead. Who are the 5 people you'd like to invite?
Ooh.
Other than me?
Yeah, other than us 4.
Your mum and dad are a given.
Tony Lockett.
So it's 5 outside your mum.
Tony Lockett. Adam Goods.
Yep.
Tim Rogers, of course.
Oh, Timmy.
Because you couldn't have a dinner party without Jolly.
Not a chance.
Raquel Welsh.
Oh, wow.
And who else have I got? Oh, come on, let's put Shane McGowan in there, shall we? Just off the top of my head. That'd make for an interesting dinner party, I reckon.
Eclectic.
Grog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it
Ah,
anyone
fantastic,
barred?
mate.
Hey?
Anyone barred from that dinner?
Anyone barred?
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started. Don't get me started, Lovey, on that. I think, I'll just let that slide.
Move on.
I'm going to think about that though all night now, and I'm going to. I'll message in next week with my barred list.
That'd be fantastic, mate. Thanks for coming on tonight, mate. Can we get another song before you go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I was thinking, I don't know. You asked me for a cover, you know.
Just do what you're feeling, Nick. If you're not feeling a cover, let's give us one of yours, mate. We don't mind.
Oh, okay. All right. You know what I want? I'll play you this. This is it's probably one of the first songs I ever wrote when I was about 17 or 18. And it's still in every single one of my sets today. So that's saying something. But I haven't got a clue what it's about. You'd have to ask some bent 17-year-old. It was the B-side of might have been another. I know that was Spirit Level. It was a B-side of a early Reptiles single. So anyway, this one's called This one's called Never Easy.
Mother died when you were 17 and the tempting broke your heart. That day on, you never did kick on. You know your whole life fell apart. We left you there at a bus stop till the rolling snowed in some cars. Sometimes, baby, when I look at you, feel I've been a little bit hard. Remember you there in your electric chair with your friends all standing around. Laughed and drank, but the whole thing stank. Success and self-made crowns. Well, I guess you deserve the best, but you really weren't to blame. The things you done in the name of fun, hell, they put a damn dog to shame. You said life's never easy. Never said it was. You're always lying and you're crying just because you can't find your watch. You just don't have the time. I go crazy out of my head, just plain out of my mind. Hey. Twice you met a girl you liked, but you never thought about it that much. Was I dreaming? I was at you screaming about some golden touch. When she left town, you felt like a clown, but you always acted tough. How can you just disappear when the road gets a little bit rough? You said life's never easy. Never said it was. You're always lying and you're crying just because you can't find your watch. You just don't have the time. Am I going crazy out of my head, just plain out of my mind? You said life's never easy. Never said it was. You're always crying just because you can't find your watch. You just don't have the time. I'm going crazy out of my head, just plain out of my mind.
Super, mate. Fantastic.
Excellent, mate. Excellent.
Nick, got to mention the Valley Sounds gig coming up too. If
Oh,
anyone
yeah.
Yeah. If anyone
That'd
wants
be
the my ticket for Ash Grummel, Mark Seymour, and James Rain, because we're just going to see you and Tracy, and then we're leaving. That should be a two come up. Not far from home.
I'm definitely going to hit Tracy up to do a song together, man. I love Tracy. She's unreal.
Ripper.
Good to do a Neil Young song with an actual Canadian would be cool.
Yeah, that's
I'll
good.
work on that.
Perfect.
Right, some homework, mate.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
Mario.
Once again, on behalf of
anyway. We've got something to look forward to.
Oh, yeah. There's a few coming up, mate.
October
I'm
30.
the leader, guys. It's been fantastic chatting with you, mate. We'll see you before the corner gig, but we'll hook up soon.
Keep up the good work, fellas. Thanks a lot.
cheers. Thanks for coming on, Nick. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Nicky.
Great to meet you,
See you,
mate.
boys.
Thanks
Good to
very
meet you,
much.
mate.
Go Swans.
Love, man.